Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Race. Happy Friday, TGIF, I suppose, eh? I have a few people over there on YouTube, so hope you guys are enjoying these fun little public broadcasts. Get some value out of this. Try and do this about a half hour summary here. Try our best, see how we do. 9:35, I should probably shut up and let you be on your way. So interesting market. This S&P 500 breadth indicator, I think it's been bothering me for quite some time. This market is not nearly as strong as I think what people are sort of lulling themselves into believing. And actually, we're getting a whole bunch of little technical signals that are a little bit concerning. So I'm probably going to err on the side of caution more than aggressiveness here for the next little while in the market. Also, too, I thought it was interesting, just to overview, we'll circle around, maybe talk a little bit about it in a bit. But the incredible violent action in the crypto market overnight actually has me sort of on pause. The algo itself at 9 o'clock last night, that's when the 9 o'clock Pacific time, that's when the algo updates. I guess basically first thing in the morning, first short over there in Europe. Updated and flashed a sell, so I hopped off of the longs up around, I don't know, 24,000, somewhere up in that area. And basically sitting on the sidelines right now. So, and this is the algo plan. Of course, I got tons of crypto on the books and tons of stocks and stuff on the books, individual plays. So never a dull moment, but this is a trader's life. How many trading plans are you running at once? So, you look at this backdrop. I know there was one gentleman in particular on the site who said he didn't really like taking signals unless all three of these were sort of pointing in the same direction. And the S&P 500 breadth here looks really, really nasty. This looks very bothersome. I did just hear a little, was that, did you hear that, Chris? Was that from your end? Yeah, it's probably, I think it's the that Canon camera. It's been giving me headaches, driving me crazy, but anyway, we'll figure it out. Right now I'm using a webcam, so that's why the image looks a little crappy. But one day I'll get to the production quality of Julian. You know what I will say, Julian, I was actually surfing through YouTube Shorts, and Julian's short about, oh my God, this is absolutely perfect short scenario. Short came up yesterday, and I was like, wow, that was awfully well timed. Did see a bunch of sort of traders all get excited about shorts yesterday up at the top of the market, and sure enough, the market kind of got punched in the nose there overnight. I'd actually been putting out, well, maybe we'll save it for the after party, but I guess just quick reference, I had been pointing out, and I think I did this on the Wednesday video, and I even said on Friday, we should probably circle around and take a look at what they're doing here. I get the distinct impression, and of course, this is because I used to be an options broker. So I have a slightly different look at this kind of market information than most people in the market. In fact, I've never seen anybody teach this kind of concept before, but you can see these are the put options and tons of open interest. This is the Bitcoin ETF. And you can see, I mean, it might be hard to see. You can always go to the Twitter feed, I suppose, and pull this tweet up for yourself. But you can see tons and tons of open interest on all of these put options. Put options make money if the market is below the strike price. So notice, like literally $15 and below, tons and tons of puts. Above $15, almost nothing. Well, it's a bit suspicious. And lo and behold, look where our BITO is sitting here today. This is, I mean, when you see this stuff, you go, I can't believe how crooked all of this is. I mean, it's stunningly corrupt, and yet perfectly legal. So it's not like anybody's doing anything outside of the guises of the law. This is the way they have the system set up. So BITO, notice it's $15.18. And I think right now, interestingly enough, actually, I mean, we have some half decent trending signals here. Of course, that's a weekly chart. Could we do some backfilling here and clean this up? Probably. In fact, actually, I think, yeah, here it is. I already have this screen all done up. I don't think it's an accident that, number one, the Bitcoin market was taken up to this $15 area. And then number two, once we got to this level, everything just stopped on a dime. I'd also say too, into the, keep in mind today is Friday. So we're here coming into the options expiry here for February. This is a big monthly options expiry. It's kind of just business as usual, and just absolutely crooked. I mean, if you think about it, like, these are some serious numbers, because the multiplier on this is times 100 and then times whatever price it was, their average, right? If it's $1, then that's, 6,453 times 100. So that's like 600,000 times $1 or something. You can even see right now, this option's trading like 30 some odd cents. But my hunch is the average rate price is probably up $1, $2, that kind of stuff. I mean, they have a lot of money on the line. And then probably also more importantly, on the flip side, the call options, a lot of people bought calls with the $15 strike. So there it is, the heaviest open interest on the call side, the $15 strike, huge number there relative to everything else. And of course, all of these options, as long as they, and my hunch is there's a clause in options expiry that says that if the option actually expires a certain amount in the money, then they can actually auto exercise the option. Which, so like if they finish, and this is why I think, and this is what my comment was I think what they're planning on doing here, which is a little scary, and of course, terribly sort of nefarious. S&P breadth looks like poop. We had your big dead cat bounce, relieved a lot of the oversold condition. We talked about going after liquidity pools on Bitcoin, all those kind of fun things. Got the kids uber bullish all over the place in crypto now. So, there is no short sentiment. Everybody's getting long and FOMOing and the whole thing. So if they can actually turn the market around here, finish it at, say, 1510, 1520 or something, auto exercise all of these call options, which means the person who bought the call option is going to be required to buy the stock at $15. And as I showed you, $15 seems to be a very convenient level. Also, too, interesting, for those people that like volume profile, this is a very interesting shelf here. It's like literally nobody's that interested in doing any business here. Once we get, most of the business over the past few months, of course, has been all through here. I guess, geez, almost past 8 or 9 months has been down in here. Once we got up into here, I don't think anybody's really that interested. So a couple of reasons I think it makes a lot of sense that they're just going to stall it right here into expiry. And of course, like I said, huge win on the puts, makes just ridiculous amounts of money. Wall Street just pockets all of these premiums. And then on the call side, get all the kids all long, all loaded up, sort of the retail schlubs that are buying. And I think we've talked a little bit about how this market has come an awful long way in a very short period of time. And the only other thing I would say to all this, of course, you have bearish divergences. I suppose they're getting cleaned up. But this sort of horror, remember we talked about the juicy stops up there. I still think they want to play with that. I wouldn't even be surprised if they have to tag Feigenbaum here. But the long and short of it here is this isn't the most bullish of images to consider buying. I suppose if I did personally want to jump in on the long side here, I'd probably want to see this thing sort of consolidate and set up some sort of bot. So probably thinking something along the lines of boobity boo. The boobity boo. So 33, no more than 66. And then something along those lines. So interesting. 25 level is where we are right now. 1 low, 2 lows, 3 lows. I don't know. I think that's maybe a bit aggressive. Could we get a little bit more of a consolidation in here over the next, say 24 hours or something like that to set up another leg higher? Believe it or not, I don't really think that a move higher here through the long weekend is outlandish. I do like the idea that they're probably going to park it somewhere in this area into this afternoon. Keep in mind the market's only got about 3 or 4 hours left to go here until that options expiry. Then once that options expiry is out of the way, then I wouldn't be surprised if there's a bit more uppy here. Hell, we might even find that following the retail close, market catches a bid and the algo actually flips back on the buy side. And I'll just go right back in and buy the position back. I mean, you never know. If anything, this is one of the, oddities of a life of a trader. I mean, if we print back to the upside, I'll just go right back in and buy the position back. That's no big deal. Anyway, so pretty wild price action here. And what I'm worried about, of course, is that we have a holiday weekend here. So, over the next 24, 48 hours, we could still see some fireworks in the crypto space, especially when the adults are done and it's just the kids playing. You see there's quite a bit of green on the screen here, and names that we were following and watching move higher, they appears to still be moving higher. So I'm leery about especially heading into the weekend here. People in the lounge and stuff were posting, look at the, holy Jesus. I mean, look at Filecoin just going crazy here. So, never a dull moment. There's still poppers here. So don't think for a moment that this thing is done. And if we're heading into the weekend and the market's still got a head of steam behind it, get ready. Yeah, all you people that have been patient and disciplined and loaded up at the bottom end of ranges, I think you're still getting paid. And I think this probably goes on through the weekend. It wouldn't surprise me. So anyway, there's your market state for you. What the heck's going on in the sort of the higher ups, big parts of the world? Interestingly enough, I didn't really see any news that sort of like, oh my God, oh my God, no, this is business as usual. Lots of sort of talk about, sort of social injustices. Lots of that, of course, in our society, no doubt about it. And back and forth. I mean, talking about Madonna, it's not really news. Probably the one thing that's concerning for me when I read through all of this is just that the banksters, of course, are reflating the economy. Everything seems to be business as usual. They started out with sickness, justification for a whole bunch of mindless spending there. Then, we've moved on to now things like war in Eastern Europe. Now the conversation isn't even about the money that's being spent or, basically just endless debt that just, never ends. And how now we need to ramp up military production because the Ukrainians are going through the shells faster than we can produce them. So we got to make more shells, more shells. Of course, where are we coming up with the money to pay for any of this? Don't worry about that right now. We'll worry about that later after they've done Klaus's great reset and all that nonsense. So it's just business as usual. And of course, this helps the Bitcoin story immensely. I don't see any reason why the Bitcoin story changes one iota here. If anything, I did hear calls for Mr. Bankman-Fried to be thrown in jail because he's doing a little bit too much talking. That soap opera is ongoing. But I think probably the biggest thing when we were all sort of worried about this crypto crash. And it's interesting how things like the Wall Street Journal, they're really trying to pump this crypto crisis, timeline of key events and all that. I think this has become a paper tiger, to be honest with you. It feels like it's like a non-event. And so as a result, I think a lot of the crypto kids are just sort of like, hey, man, party's still on. As well, too, that ChatGPT, that hasn't slowed down at all. So I wouldn't be surprised if now it's always a question of how does AI fit into crypto. But I don't see any sort of change in that narrative either. So slow and steady wins a race, I suppose. Probably the one big thing that could be a drop, but I don't think anything's going to really happen through the weekend. But of course, it's pure rhetoric. I have no idea what's going to actually happen. Of course, Binance and CZ with this whole BUSD issue, I think that's probably the only sort of Trojan horse that's floating out there right now that could really derail things. So, but I think if I understand correctly, I read through this article and I think CZ was like, well, BUSD was a fun experiment. He didn't even think it was going to work. And now he's gone off and he's doing Justin Sun's stable coin. And I think he even said that he likes the idea of just moving completely away from US dollar-based stable coins, which is a fascinating development, I suppose. We'll all be trading Japanese yen stable coins pretty soon. What? Go figure. Econs? I didn't really see too much surprising econs wise. The market itself, I think, was a little bit taken aback by the fact that things like producer prices are still very strong. My interpretation of what's going on here, for whatever it's worth, is I guess now you could argue there's three, but there's really two sort of driving forces with this inflation game. You have what's called cost push, and that's all about commodity prices. And then you have demand pull, and that's all about workers and their wages and all that kind of stuff. Because the housing industry, and keep in mind, in years gone by, housing technically, after the Great Depression, all the politicians tried really hard to get the banksters the fuck out of the housing market because people need homes, and securitizing homes, and then of course evicting people when they take mortgages and loans and stuff out on those houses that they can't really afford to service. That's not really a good idea for a population base. And frankly speaking, we've gotten suckered right back into the old trap. And so now the banksters have securitized houses and homes. So as a result, I think that's now become a fairly large component in this inflation game. So you listen to Powell now, and it's sort of like, okay, well, you got the cost push, and that's all the commodities prices and all that. Then you've got this, and they've injected a new category in here, the housing services part of the economy, which, frankly speaking, I've told people this in the past, and unfortunately, I don't know when the hell this thing ends. But usually when one sector represents more than 33% of an economy, that's a bubble. And interestingly enough, the bubble started to pop there in 2008, but with the runaway money printing and just, hey, you know what, we're just going to gloss over the problem. No big deal. Just print a whole bunch of money. They haven't really changed it. And of course, guys like Mr. Barry have been publicly stating that the problem is now 10 times worse because everything has just been securitized. So now we've got the housing component in there. And we actually had some housing numbers come out relatively firm recently. It's interesting to see the UK and European numbers are still pretty firm as well. Interesting. They're actually even talking about the European Central Bank getting away from negative interest rates, which I think is long overdue. And then, so that part of the inflation curve has not broken yet. And then, of course, we have the demand pull part of the equation, which hasn't even started to break yet. So what we're seeing is commodity prices that cost push part of the equation, they are rolling over. And interestingly enough, a little bit of it a surprise. I think a lot of people were looking for natural gas prices to pivot here and turn back up. And instead, they smartly broke down here. Now, the only problem with and I don't know whether it's a problem or not, can you really short that? Is that such a good idea to come in at the bottom end of a massive trading range and short that? I don't think so. What I do think, though, is that there were probably a lot of people that, said, I like the idea of buying W's. The Beamish guys convinced me that those W things are the shit. And so if this thing does go and W out, I'm going to load up. And I think to a certain degree, a lot of people actually in the market sort of front ran this trade. But you notice that it never did break out. I think this is one of the reasons why the market will do relatively okay here. And it might even be one of the reasons why crypto actually does relatively okay. Because energy prices are not rising. They're falling still. And it's so sad, of course, because, did the Europeans get all screwed up there with the energy market last year? Did they go and invest tons and tons and tons of money into things like heat pumps and solar panels and stuff, and we'll never buy another BTU of natural gas again because it's through the roof expensive? So what does the market do? Market brings the price of natural gas back down to nothing. It's kind of tragic, really, the way capitalism works. But the point being that I think this chart caught a lot of people off guard. We're not expecting that. And also, too, over in the commodity space, I noticed that the crude oil market is just getting smoked here, down 3% on the day. We always say that a move greater than 2% is enough to get the traders' attention. It's kind of the same thing as natural gas. We're thinking middle of February, buy your unleaded 9 times out of 10, you make money selling it into May. Maybe this is the 1 time out of 10 where that doesn't happen. I don't know. I would say we're still stuck in a trading range here. So I don't know whether we've actually really broken down per se on crude oil prices, but I'll tell you, this thing's looking awfully heavy. Awfully heavy here. So, we'll see how we do filling in price gaps down below. I suppose one could argue that we would get sort of outright sell signals as soon as we get market structure signals on the other side of this trend line, which I don't see just yet. So still just playing at the bottom end of the range. But I think the market that really stood out to me today that caught my attention was that natural gas. I was quite surprised at that. Now, in the face of all that, I did find it really interesting that the NASDAQ is under an immense amount of pressure here. And I suppose this is to a certain degree very similar to the Bitcoin chart. Big rally off the bottom, right? Beautiful little W. Nice trade signal right in there. Huge move up. We did actually M out there about a week or two ago. And you'll notice that our counter trend rally came up to the left-hand side, or I guess the right-hand side of the M, and failed. It did not break out, and now we're threatening to roll back over here. It's interesting to see things like the ES actually, and there's the S&P 500, ES actually did break through these lows, right? So that low 40, 60, 75, low here today, 40, 56, 50. So we did do some serious technical damage here on the stock market today. Moving averages still pointing up, and price will use these moving averages as support. So I don't think that this market's going to collapse. But you know, this image actually corresponds nicely with this image. That's not a happy market. That's a market, especially with that recent M that just came in. That's a market that's saying, you know, I'm a little bit tired. Maybe we need to take a bit of a pause here. Also, too, you know, just the first week of January, that January barometer, it did show a bit of back and forth through February, March. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a little bit of that involved in the market. And I don't know whether it's on sort of an uptick in inflation worries again. Clearly, you know, producer prices unexpectedly rebounded. You know, and you know, this is a great little history lesson for all of you guys. There was a famous central banker down in the States, Alan Greenspan, who used to purposefully say to the public, like, if you actually understood what I said and you got meaning out of what I said, then I was far too clear in what I was saying to you. And I think this is a really good example where the Bank of Canada Governor Thiessen, I think his name is, I think he's a little too arrogant for the job. And, you know, as you've seen from Powell and stuff like that, central bankers are absolutely horrible. They're probably worse than me at predicting the future. And I'm not really that good at it either. I think, you know, he came out at last month and he said, absolutely, the Bank of Canada is not raising interest rates anymore. That's it. We're done. Well, I can tell you, if you still have these kind of prints coming out that producer prices are still rocking higher, and the inflation problem is still very much alive in the great country of Canada, he's going to have to turn around and say, I'm sorry, I got to raise interest rates again. So really, really good lesson that, number one, you really shouldn't listen to central bankers as economic predictors because they're almost always wrong. They always go too far. They always do too much, and they're always late. So, you know, go figure. It's an interesting history lesson for all of you guys. Don't think that Chair Powell and all those doofuses down there in the U.S. Fed, and, you know, like Lagarde, she's not even a banker. She's a lawyer by trade. Why would these people be any better at predicting the future than anybody else? So anyway, the one thing that does surprise me a little bit, though, is, like I said, the energy prices, which is, you know, sort of a huge sort of, cost push, part of the inflation equation in that natural gas market. They're pretty weak here. They're not showing signs of strength yet. And interestingly enough, if you played that crude oil market seasonally, we're supposed to actually step into this weakness the middle of February and sell the middle of May and made money 9 out of the past 10 years. So I'm not really ready to sort of say that the crude oil market is toast and you should short it. I'm just sort of saying that, you know, there is no upside pressure in this market as we speak right now. But anyway, only time will tell. Actually, an interesting market to watch, and I was quite surprised at this. The metals markets. Look at palladium. Palladium down $23 an ounce. That's some pretty big movement there. So I was thinking bear ABCD on this bad boy. Looks to me like palladium prices could fall in half from where we are right now. So that would be more of that sort of cost push part of the equation. Let's see how this plays out. And that's a bit of a surprise. You know, I had, one particular gold stock that was a favorite of Mr. Tesla, Mr. Musk. it kind of got beat up here recently. I mean, it's not a disaster. They just said that, hey, we're going to cut our dividend until things look a little bit clearer for us. One thing I did notice that jumped out at me today, and actually somebody in the lounge posted this, I was actually quite surprised. Unfortunately, if I do this, all hell breaks loose, but oh well. What the hell, we'll do it anyway. All right. So probably a good note to finish up on. We talked there a few minutes ago about the breadth indicator looking a bit suspect. That looks a bit dangerous, if you ask me. Probably wouldn't be a bad idea to also look at like the technology sector. It's like NASDAQ 100 kind of idea. Yeah, that does not look happy. That needs time to clean up. Then when we pop on over to things like the VIX, I was actually interested. One of our site OGs, Mr. Harmonics himself, Stephen, who actually, from what I understand, had a nice presentation in the level 3 program this previous week and was very well received. He pointed out, hey, look, he actually has harmonic patterns firing down here. And, I hate to say it, but that's starting to look very W-ish. And then something that jumped out at me, in fact, actually, he was looking at the VIX on the Toronto Stock Exchange, of all things. I don't think I have that on here in particular, but interesting. Look at that. Now that silly BITO 1532. Let's see where they take that out today. But if we look at something like the Toronto Stock Exchange TSX 35, this is sort of the big index in Canada. What letter of the alphabet does that look like? Oh boy, that doesn't look very optimistic. Momentum pointing down, Willie stupid. Probably 50% retracements take us back down to fill in these gaps. That looks pretty darn dangerous up there. And so I'm getting a lot of this kind of anecdotal information, whether I don't think the S&P, well, yeah, the S&P looks like double toppy as well. So, we didn't have this break here. I suppose maybe we sort of think if you're thinking of trading range, this might even be actually a really good example of Hoag's 80% play where we've accepted back into value. So we probably need to trade back down to value low. So I'm getting a lot of these cautionary words. That does not look like a market that I want to get too excited about on the long side just yet. It's a bit suspicious, folks. So there's your backdrop. Like I said, I was really impressed with Julian's presentation yesterday. I think he's turning into a very good trader. And he had sort of pointed out the only cautionary word I would have with Bitcoin and crypto, of course, is, I think we got to get through the options expiry today. But there's still quite a bit of inertia here, especially in these smaller ones. There we are, crypto. And I wouldn't be surprised if through the weekend, like some people in the lounge were posting KuCoin charts. Oh, boy. If you do have an account on KuCoin, my hunch is today and tomorrow, and probably tomorrow, especially like tomorrow morning, that's going to be the fun part of the market. It should be pretty wild, like things like Zugi's names. You might see Zugi's names pop up here, like this Filecoin. Look at that, 43% move on the day. Kaboom. Way to go, Adam. Adam, he was all excited about this. Unfortunately, I got out of that doofus. But anyway, it is what it is. And look at this, Clay versus USDT. I noticed there was one that Shane, my old buddy, and Andrew were super interested in. And in fact, I think they took a whole bunch of the paper down. So I think that they're going to do pretty well. I think I have an ownership stake in that, but I don't know. We'll see if they give me a report on that or not. But where the heck is that one? It was taken off like a rocket. I guess it was it this one? Yeah, look at that move, eh? Stargate token. Look at that. Woohoo! So, I don't see any reason to step in front of that and short that. I think you're kind of asking for trouble. Look at that, Bitcoin up good, 800, 900 bucks on the day. So yeah, things look like they could turn pretty bullish here for the weekend. So stay tuned, folks. Actually, oh, interesting. This little EOS. Oh, it looks like he's about to break out. So keep your eyes peeled on that one if you got into that little guy. Of course, that little lit, he took off. Guess he's calming down a little bit here. But anyway, should be a fun weekend. So stay tuned. And of course, slow and steady wins the race. Try not to take any wooden nickels out there. And, once we get into, we'll do the broiler chickens on Sunday. And my hunch is there's going to be a whole bunch of stuff to talk about through that. But Monday's a holiday. So usually around the holidays, there's some screwiness in the market. The market's caught a bit of a bid here. So hopefully this translates into a really fun weekend for crypto kids here. So, all right, why don't we leave it at that? That was about 35 minutes. Hopefully I gave you a half decent overview of what I'm seeing in the market. And as I said, with regard to the stock market, the big thing I'm watching right now is how they, I'll just type it up here, how they take this BITO out. I got a funny feeling this is exactly where they wanted to go out here today. And then once this is done at 1 o'clock, and that's in about, 3 hours, then I think you can officially start your weekend frivolity. Interesting how a lot of the crypto names, though, are not really catching a bid here today, though. So that's a bit surprising. All right, everybody. PMA for the win. Slow and steady wins the race. All the best. And the only thing left for Brian to say is bye for now.